particular project, actually a couple particular projects. So much appreciated, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, members of the board, and I promise that this is not going to be as long as the amount of paper it tells you. My wife says that I scroll social media too much. Probably agree with her. But I saw a reel, and Indra Nui was giving a master class about how to do presentations. So I figured I'll learn something from someone that ran a Fortune 500 company, and it says that I should do more inductive presentations than deductive presentations. So I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this presentation.
You're already boring me.
What?
We haven't even gotten to the first slide.
Not the first slide. That's it. This is going to go really quick. But I wanted to make sure. So this is going to be an update to you on what happened from the last time that I met with you. It's probably 6 months ago. But I attached our org chart, and you can see that the facilities department at Osceola School is very, very flat. I mean, we have probably 20 employees total, and that's between Rhonda's group and planning as well as design and construction that's run by Joe. We have 3 project managers, we have 4 assistant project managers, and 2 project assistants. The point is that group of people, you would never hear of Treasure or Charlene or Santi or Tim that are our project managers or accountant and our contracts people that process everything through and get all of this paperwork done and all of the 15 or 20 board agenda items that I have every couple of weeks. But our stakeholders, operations, for reviewing every project, doing punch lists, Lester and his group signing off on projects and making sure that cameras are in the right location, fire alarms are done right. Sarah's group and making sure that pay applications are done and that our contractors get paid on time, because it is important for us to do. So really this is about showing the combination of work that these people did, and so it's my job to tell you that story. That's essentially what I wanted to do.
Is that inductive or deductive?
This is inductive.
Okay,
I just told you what it did.
Can you define the word for me? What does that
Inductive?
mean? Like in your context.
In my Caribbean context.
No.
So deductive. Doing the presentation in a deductive way, I'll give you a bunch of reasons, and then I'll tell you why they work. Inductive gives you why they work, and then I'll tell you the reasons why they work. So I'm flipping the presentation.
Okay, the flipped classroom.
I was like, just as
I love a flipped classroom. It was my favorite way to teach.
So here we go. The first slide is essentially all of the data that you'll have, but what I'm going to show you is how much work was done over the summer. I've been with this district, November is going to be 3 years. When I came here, we had no major projects in construction. We were wrapping up Canoe Creek, and in that time, we did a significant amount of work. I'm coming up on 3 years, and we still have an amazing amount of work to do. But I think the processes are working. I think we're doing a good job. We've learned a lot of lessons. We've made mistakes, and we continue to improve. Part of what we're going to do is going to get into the strategic plan about how we make the facilities department better. So we're working as a group. That's why I'm in that alignment section, because the facilities department needs to be aligned with our teaching and learning. So you will hear a lot more of that. I'm all up on how much furniture, what kind of furniture we put into classrooms, how light affects learning, what kind of HVAC, the amount of CO2 in the classroom, all of that, because it does impact student learning. So you'll hear a lot more of that, and something that we've spent a lot of time to do. Doing. So essentially, we have $988 million program-wide. Sorry, do I need to slow down, sir?
No, I was just thinking
Did I say that wrong?
The amount of air in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm working on it. We've had some hiccups this summer.
Gotta have good oxygen flow.
You
Keep
do?
them learning. We're falling asleep.
It's how casinos work, right? Because
Yep,
they pump
exactly.
pure oxygen into it, so it keeps you
more
alert.
plants, then in other words, they can.
So we're about $980 million. This is broken out into projects and planning. This is a lot more right now, because from when I put together this presentation to now, we have about 8 more projects that landed here. And this is where that deferred maintenance list of projects that get approved in the budgets every year make it onto our list to get work done. Projects in design, about $245 million, and these are just the large ones. The Oxa comprehensive renovation, which we're planning to bring to the board, the next board meeting. Roan Bridge is still on hold, and I'll give you an update on that because of the developer. Reedy Creek, we're wrapping up construction. We're looking to start construction, put into construction early next year. Then we have some larger deferred maintenance projects like Ponciana and Celebration K8. And then we're also getting into our fire alarm and some upgrades to this boardroom. Projects in construction, about $717 million. A lot of these are going to get drop off because the dates in bold are projects that are completed but have to drop into closeout, and that's usually just getting to that point where our pay applications are done, and so they would drop into closeout. So that number is going to go down significantly, but that's the amount of work.
Is that post punch?
Sorry, yes, sir. These are correct. So it's just right now it's just getting through our final warranties and stuff like that, closeout packages. Correct. We have completed punch lists. So the projects that have been wrapped up, and we do get into this in the presentation, which is a lot of photographs. But Gateway High School was completed, Knights Point Gate was open, Voyager was open, Neo City, the second phase was open, St. Cloud High School, we opened that wing addition. We wrapped up a lot of our HVAC projects and the fields at Toho. And then the projects in closeout about $19 million. That number is going to go up. And this is usually just the paperwork and the final pay applications. And then we get into the fun stuff. This is a map of project locations overlaid with board member areas, so it shows you the schools that are in your areas that are being affected, and these are projects that are over $2 million. I didn't even keep, so you see a lot of those miscellaneous projects. You do have a handout that shows every project that the facilities department is overseeing that was handed to you. This is just for information purposes. We can absolutely go through that if you need to. So Gateway High School, and this is where I'm going to start with the pictures. We started this project about 2 years ago. You know, a project like this starts 4 years out because you need 1.5 years in design. You need roughly about 2 years in construction. But I'll take you through the photographs of how this ended up. I think it came out really well. The school has beneficial use, and we're fully out of that project. You know, you have a new gymnasium which we activated for the storm, this as a storm shelter for the last hurricane. That worked really well. We put it through the ringer. The generators work, and they are in a much better place. And the courtyard was the last bit that
I
we
haven't
did,
seen that part yet.
which
That's
is
good.
the final. And
Yeah.
it is a panther spa. So if you look at it from, if you look at it.
Oh,
I
yes,
love
I can
it.
see it. I can see it.
If you look at it aerially, it is a panther spa. We did keep a lot of the natural shade that we could,
Yeah.
but it's just a matter of connecting the building, and we did. So they now operate like a traditional high school where they have an enclosed courtyard, so they can move from building to building without being exposed to the outside. So it is part of the security updates as well.
Love it.
Then we get to Knights Point K8, new construction. This school went through really well. Now I know you've seen some of these, you've been to the school, but I haven't done a formal update to the board, so I decided to include it. Include some photographs of what
Yeah,
the
I'd like to see
outside.
them actually completed, because I saw them during construction. I wouldn't mind actually seeing them one more time.
Always open to that, sir.
We have to go.
Yeah, I'm happy to take you up. New kitchen cafeteria, you know, we have all of the new stuff that we're talking about putting in. We started to implement some of them, you know, the right flooring. We have LVT throughout, the HVAC systems, these are newer, more energy efficient HVAC system, and we've had some concerns with them that we're still working through, and our team is getting better at. Voyager K8, this opened, and one thing that I must say, again, this team did all of that work. And we opened our schools, the last school that we opened was Voyager, and was open 6 weeks before school opened. We had time to move in, we had time to integrate our staff, train them, get systems up and running. And I was actually very happy that we didn't make the news for not opening school. That's a shot across the bow.
You were
Oh
happy.
my,
So,
you get invited to a golf
Shade.
tournament next year.
I was gonna say, shots are
Final
fired.
listen,
You have a follow 6 there?
our part, at Voyager,
Yeah.
we're working through it. We're still working through it. But I'll tell you about what we did. So one of the things that we did is years ago when these projects started was we took the route of going for the most energy efficient systems that we could. And with that, our engineers recommended, this was prior to me even being here, that's not a cop-out, but it's what we're living with. Water source heat pumps, and we've been having some issues getting all of the classrooms running the right way, the control system. So we're still balancing, still learning. We've had the manufacturers, the engineers, the contractors all involved working through those systems, and so we're getting better at it. This is Neo City Phase 2. They actually had final shots of it. The school now has, and I'll take you through some of these, but they have a full functioning cafeteria that they can feed and serve on site, as well as all the other classrooms. This second phase of the building has built into the program a mock-up clean room that mimics the one over at Skywater. So the intent is, and Valencia has one as well, but the idea is to allow the students to go through the process of having to change out and get into the white suits and then get into that area. It's technically a test lab, but so they're working through getting that up and running because it's built in here. St. Cloud High School, we added 21 classrooms. You can see that's actually integrated into Building 3. Project went seamless. We actually opened this one before school let out last year. Neptune Middle School, and those are the new schools and new building additions that we added. And then you get into all of the projects that we had that were smaller that were teed up to get done just during the summer break. So Neptune Middle School, we added a bus loop. This is completed, and this is waiting on the Neptune road alignment. Once that's done, our buses are going to come off the back so that they don't have to do that sharp jog at Ames Haven. But with the widening of Neptune Road, we can only put our car traffic because they're backed up over the bridge. So we can try to take more cars on site in our car loop, and we moved our bus loop to the back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what about for the parent loop? Because I know that's the bus loop, but, was there a plan to expand that one?
Correct. So the parent loop, the current parent loop will be connected to the existing bus loop in front. Apologies. To increase the amount of stacking that we have on site.
The
Okay.
bus loop's on front right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to get a idea where this is.
This is
then.
Ames Haven. This is actually at the back of the school.
No
So this
wonder.
was built at the back
Okay.
of the school. So the current bus loop and the car loop will
It
be.
has a light, which has a traffic
That
light.
is correct. Yes,
So
sir.
that the parents will be able to enter in
At the
through the
light.
traffic
At
light.
the light.
Oh my God, thank you, Lord.
That is what
Because
we're
I go
doing.
to school there, that's why.
And the new
Yes.
the road that connects Ames Haven to Neptune Road will have a light as well, so the buses will be able to turn left.
No wonder, because I was like, I don't see it, because it's in the back.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It is.
gotcha.
Secure lobby. So this has been a big thing for a while. So we wrapped these up over the summer. And every school now has a secure lobby, and we're working through another project to now get our front doors locked down, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We had issues, right? It took us a long time. We ordered so many doors and so many pieces of hardware that they were coming in sporadically, but we worked through that, and this really small team did that. One of the things that we don't talk often about is how much portables we have in the district. District-wide, we did an analysis the other day. We were working with operations. We have 149 portables. As long as I've been in school districts, we've never been that low. I've never seen
Feels
that low.
like Gateway had 149 portables when I was going to school there.
Of the 149
When I was going to
portables, we own 103 of them. So we're actually only leasing the difference. And that's where we're getting better. What that tells me, and it tells our team and should tell you, is that we're getting to a point where we can accommodate our permanent student capacity in buildings, and we're getting away from leasing portables and spending money on temporary facilities. A lot of that rented portables is for the OXA project. We had to put down some temporary portables and over a path so we can put some permanent spaces for them. So it's temporary as we do this. And those are going to go away as well as those projects get wrapped up. So the intent here is really to show progress, that we are getting to a point where we're not burning money leasing portables. At Harmony Community, we did a space reconfiguration over the summer within the building where we took some oversized classrooms and some planning spaces and we converted them into traditional classrooms. And we were able to add 90 student stations within the building rather than adding portables. That would have translated to like 8 or 9 portables leased over a few years, and along with restrooms and stuff like that. So we're making the decisions that have the best impact to the district. We've been working with our school nutrition services folks for a long time now, and what you have is we spent the summer, we replaced cooler freezers completely gutted and replaced at Deerwood Elementary, at Liberty High School, at OTEC. We had 6 cooler freezers there for the teaching classroom, and this is a CTE program. We gutted it out, opened that space, and this is what it looks like now. They have one standard open cooler freezer that was replaced in that space. Poinciana High School, we had to gut the entire gym floor and replace it because after refinishing it so many times, it gets very thin. And so we're going to continue. We now have that on the schedule. As the high school comes along and we get to that point, we're going to replace it. At Narcoosie Elementary School, we added an exit lane. So if you're turning right onto Narcoosie Road from the elementary school now, you don't have to wait on the light. And so people can use, we have 2 lanes turning left, 1 lane turning right, which is helping with the traffic in that area. And we're gonna do some improvements on the middle school side as well to help with that traffic as well this coming summer. Cypress Elementary
Is
School.
that your Accords oil right there?
Don't.
Oil stain from your Accords?
So I struggled to get a good photograph, and the hurricane kind of pushed me back. So I had to use a punch list photograph. I had to use a punch list photograph. They actually had to go back and fix this, but it was a wet spot, but it was the best photograph I had. But we redid the parking lot at Cypress Elementary. We redid the parking lot at New Beginnings School. At Cypress, we also did a complete HVAC retrofit. Now, this project started the summer before and wrapped up this summer because we worked over the breaks only, not to impact the school, and now they have a new HVAC system school-wide, new chillers, new air handlers throughout. And so we're gonna get into a lot more of those. Parkway Middle School gym, we replaced the gym, the AC system over the summer. Ventura Elementary School has new chillers that were installed, we swapped out, pulled out, replaced, get them up and running back before school. Sorry, I skipped something. Harmony High School has an entire new central energy plant. 3 massive chillers because they were at the point where our operational folks have to respond to multiple callouts because a pump went down, because we lost a valve over here or controls were out.
Was that the one that lightning struck or something like that? Or?
We had some sort of an issue there, but it was a pump issue with the compound, and I wasn't aware of a lightning strike over there. We did new pumps, and what this translates to is less call-outs to our maintenance guys so they can focus on what they need to. You have less operational costs over time as you do stuff like this.
Well, it works quite well, because you like to throws everybody out of the gym for the shelter.
Well, it's good to hear. Rather, we prefer the not working side. We prefer to that. Central Avenue Elementary, we replaced the HVAC, and all of this work was done this summer. Narcoossee Middle School, we replaced the chiller pumps and the chiller piping. Reedy Creek Elementary, so we replaced the chiller here. We had a temp chiller on a trailer for a while that we held right up in the front of the school. We decided to replace the chiller, and this chiller is now going to be repurposed for the new school as it gets built.
Maintain stuff.
That is correct. So, but right now we have a more reliable system for the school as they go. This is Pleasant Hills Elementary. We replaced the fan coil units. At Toho, we've heard for years about how the fields are not draining well. So we redid those fields, and these are photographs of the new baseball, softball, and football fields that I'm getting good feedback from that function well, that they can use. Central Avenue Elementary, we gutted the entire kitchen, and we redid the serving lines as well as built a manager's office and new equipment in there. Again, supporting our school nutrition services folks. ESC, the building right here over at Bill Beck, their audiology booth that we had
Yeah.
prior, probably been there for, I don't know, as long as the district's been around. So we finally were able to replace that, and we got them a new functioning, fully
Oh, the
functioning
ramp to get
audiology booth. And ADA compliant, yes sir, correct. Horizon Middle School, we recabled the entire school because we're 1-to-1, and so we have some of these schools with older cable. We work with our IT folks, and we pick new school every summer to do it. Celebration K-8, we added outdoor dining. Sorry,
Question
yes ma'am.
about the recabling.
Yes.
You just mentioned that a lot of our schools don't have the proper cabling.
Not a
Is this
lot.
one-
Some.
I'm sorry.
We know what they are.
Some of
They're
our
on the list.
schools, I'm sorry?
We know what they are, they're on the list, we dealt with each year.
See how efficient he is answering questions? He knew what I was gonna ask.
We have a
Yeah.
plan.
Then the queue.
Pete and I have a plan the same way Scott and I have a plan about what's coming down the line so that we can start preparing for them. So we know what IT
And
is.
how many schools? Which I know is not a lot.
Between 6 and 8,
Thank you.
that have to have cabling adjusted.
Okay. Thank you.
They function out. There's nothing wrong. They function, but it's just the amount
It's
of
not
data
the
we get.
most efficient.
That is correct.
It's the category of cable that's being used that needs to be.
Mhm. Thanks.
So Celebration K-8, we added outdoor dining for them, and of course I couldn't get a finished photograph. This is done and up and running for first day of school, but the fencing is there. One of the things we did to help our school nutrition services folks to build in some reliability is we added an outlet on the exterior every cafeteria in the district, where if their cooler freezers go down, they can pull one of the portable cooler freezers and plug it in and keep functioning. So we did that district-wide, and we got it all done and up and running for them. And then I get into the schools that are actually in construction now, the projects that are larger in construction. This is Kindred. not Kindred, this is K8AA, it's in the Kindred community. And this school is scheduled to be open next summer. It is on target to do so. You remember when we broke ground, you were there was nothing there. Some photographs of the inside, we're dried in, windows are in, roofs done, and we're starting to push forward on the inside, so we're doing a lot better. Transportation East. This project's coming along well. We did have some hiccups with our permitting between Osceola County and the South Florida Water Management. So our opening date of December has been pushed back to February 13th. And we are also hoping to get our traffic signal and turn lanes done in that time as well. And there is an MOU on the agenda for tonight to be approved with Osceola County to get that all worked out. But this is coming along well. This entire site is our property. The high school site is to the north. And to the south, to the right of my screen there, you have where all of the bus parking is going to be, spots for 200 buses. Again, impacting the operational costs if our buses don't have to drive all the way from Simpson Road.
And so I don't have to pull the item on the agenda today to talk about it. So where you're planning to put in the traffic light is the entrance in there, right?
That is correct.
But if you follow the screen up, that's where the high school is. So we're not planning to put a traffic light, or nobody's compelling us to put a traffic light at the entrance of the school itself.
They are not. That is correct. Yes, sir. I don't know how to use the pointer on this thing.
And the buses will be using this one. I know there's buses for the transportation depot. I'm talking about the
The
buses.
high school buses
specifically
also
for
come
high
off,
school.
the high school buses
Right,
also come off the same road. Yes, sir.
And there's a back entrance then to
That is
the bus
correct. That
there.
leads to the development. Yeah. And it connects back to.
And so the parents will probably come on the north side then. So the second entrance will be.
That
just
is
for
correct. They're gonna come off for what
Or
is,
student drivers.
our road hasn't been built yet. That's called Bluebird Parkway, and that's what we're working through with the county and the city of St. Cloud to get built,
Okay.
where our entrance comes out. I do have a site plan for the high school, so I'll show it to you. Transportation East, again, updates, the interior is being built out. This is a lot further along. I was out there. So this is essentially the high school, and what I wanted to talk about here was the wetlands that have been overlaid on it, and that is the permit that we're still missing. If you'll notice that it clips the gym a little bit, so we're continuing to move ahead. But as you notice, Mr. Melendez, the bus loop comes off the south side there,
Stop. Mhm.
and then there is a little road at the top, that's Bluebird Parkway, that connects to Nova Road, that's still to be built by the county. So we're working with them to get that done in time for opening of school. So this is what the high school site looks like now. It's already cleared, and we're pulling along on the pad and hoping to make as much progress as we can, but we cannot touch the areas where the wetlands are. That's still our part that's up in the air. We've been pushing really hard to get that done.
This one was to open the fall.
2026. So high school typically takes 2 years to be built.
Right, got it.
More photographs of what the site looks like. And Transportation West. So this is the other transportation site off of Robert McLean Boulevard. The areas in purple are where we have wetlands that are under Army Corps permitting, and as you'll notice, it's the driveway to go in to build the site. So we can't really get our heavy equipment in to start the actual work. There is an easement with Toho that's on the board agenda tonight that allows us to come around from the south side of this drawing to get access to the site, just to cross Toho's property to get the equipment there so we can start. Our intention is to start the buildings in the site whilst our permit for the roadway, the driveway comes on, so we can build that. We might be building the driveway coming out versus waiting to build the driveway and then get to the actual site.
Are we gonna keep that access from the south side? You're not
No.
temporarily,
No, sir.
because it's temporary,
No.
that's not gonna be permanent.
Because we have to cross two owners' property, Ham Brown as well as Toho Water.
Remind me of the expected completion date.
So far, my apologies, I did update it in the front.
And again, I guess let me ask a question now, so I don't have to ask it during the board meeting, so it can go a bit faster. If the Corps of Engineers says no to granting that easement or getting past that permit, what's the second option or plan B?
They already did though, right?
They're processing it, which means that they're not saying no.
Yeah.
That's one thing. So they're not saying no, it's just time that they take to process it. Tends to be very lengthy. It's close to a year to get a permit out of them. Every developer, every school district in the state of Florida is caught in the same thing. It was a lawsuit that was filed by the federal government against South Florida Water Management. We used to issue the permits. We used to be able to get a permit in 6 months. It now seems to be taking about a year. It's just the amount of workload that they have with the Army Corps. But essentially, the discussion that I have had with our legal team is the same as with our Oxa bus road when we were talking about it, that was going through a wetland, is essentially we'll come to this school board and say that we're gonna eminent domain it. Even though we own the property, the intent is not to take ownership, but give the facilities department the authority to go ahead and demolish the wetlands. We will follow on from an engineering standpoint. We know that what we're doing is right because they're going to approve our drawings eventually. It's just a matter of timing, and this is affecting everybody across.
And you still have Toho and Ham's easement you could get if you had to.
That is correct. That's why we're using it.
So,
But they don't wanna give it permanently, they just want it for the construction.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yeah. Because we would have to acquire property from the both of those in order to have a permanent access coming in from the back, which is just not necessary once we get our permanent road built. So I'm sorry.
And plus,
so
there's no
it-
traffic light to get in
it's-
there anyway, so.
It's,
No, I'm saying 'cause
March
on
of,
the- yeah, on the
March
east-
of 2026.
Ponciano Boulevard.
That's our plan right now. So we, part of this project, Mr. Melendez, is to put a traffic signal at Robert McLean and Ponciano Boulevard. Always was, it was in the drawings. Because our buses need that in order to turn, and because we are the ones driving it. I typically pay for it, turn lanes and traffic signals.
otherwise you'd never get it out.
That is correct. So, that takes me to Toho, not Toho, I'm sorry. Take that back,
Yeah.
Oxa. So we're wrapping up the design for Oxa, and we have Joe Toth here, our architect, so he can help me answer questions if there are any. There aren't. I've had this conversation before. When we go to engage an architect for a project like Oxa, our assumption is, with the best of information that we have, because we didn't build the original facility, is that we can renovate the building, which the auditorium specifically. I had spoken to the board before about the roof not being code compliant because it was made out of tectum, the deck was made out of tectum, so we have to take that off, open it up all the way to here and rebuild it to current Florida's building code standards. As we were getting into that, I actually went out there, our engineers were digging into it as well, but we have an orchestra pit at Oxa. It's the only school that we have an orchestra pit, and it constantly floods. Well, it turns out, when we did our surveys and all the calculations, we found that the stage height is actually below the water table. So there is a pump system that constantly pumps water out. There are pipes under there, and they constantly pump water 24 hours a day. They pump the water out from the dirt, and then it pumps it out and dumps it outside of the building. That is how you keep it dry. Inadvertently, over long breaks, if one of those pumps go down, we will have the entire pit flooded out. So we're looked at our engineers, so what do we recommend? What is the best thing that we can do for this? And
Turn it into a pool.
Where does the water come from?
it's just below the water table, it's
table,
Florida, so you
ground.
dig 3 feet down and you'll find water,
Yeah.
and that's essentially what happens. to
Wet
us.
season, you'll get it, dry season.
So it come seep up through the concrete?
It
The
will,
foundation?
yes, sir,
Yeah.
Groundwater,
it's groundwater. So,
under pressure.
Joe, is it about, how many rows back as well that's below the water table?
No, I don't have 20 miles, about half.
About half of the auditorium as well is where the seats are below that water table.
Yeah.
So essentially what we're proposing to do is infill the orchestra pit, raise the stage and those seats to be above there, so we will get rid of this problem permanently and then continue with the project. So the team's working
It
on
was
that.
Tupperware who put those pumps in originally.
Yes, sir. They built it that way, so they had that way. We just inherited it that way. So the team's working through that. We're working through that. We have some elements of the design
Yeah, but
already.
now that you're starting to
supplied to the
escalate all
contractor.
these things, because is this considered, the question I had before, I don't know if it was ever answered, is this a Castaldi building since Tupperware built it and not the school district? You know what I'm saying? Because technically speaking, we didn't build it. Now, we paid for it. Was that the workaround? And that was a question I asked, and I don't think that was ever answered that. Or does
So
Castaldi even apply to it?
we did run the analysis at that time, when you asked, and I did come back to say that we looked at the cost. No, it's fine.
No, I can't remember the Castaldi part of it. not
We
the financial part.
looked at the cost of what it would take to replace the roof when we knew it was the roof on the interior, what that would take versus knocking the entire building down and replacing it, and the cheaper option was to replace the roof. This, I don't know where this puts us. The timeline would throw us off, of course, to get the Castaldi approved. But structurally, what we found is that this auditorium is tied to that existing building as
So it's
well.
not the whole building,
It's not just that part of the building. If we take that down, we don't know what the impacts are to the rest of the open space that we're turning into our cafeteria. So we could essentially be taking the entire building up. There's a lot of unknowns into it. Castali does kick in because it is district assets. We did verify with DOE that we're gonna have to Castali it out. Of course, from back when it was built versus how much it is costing now. Majority of the cost for this project, I know this is pricey and I'm talking about expensive stuff. Majority is going to go into a standalone classroom building that's 3 stories to really formalize it as a school and, campus improvements. We don't have any retention that is ours here, so we have to build a retention. You've been there, parking is in the grass, so building an entirely new parking lot. That's where a lot of the money really went. It's just these things on older buildings that was built back then by people that were thinking and making the best decisions they could. This worked for Tupperware. This existing auditorium has 2,300 seats. None of our high schools are close to that. They're probably more around 700-800 seats.
Yeah.
That's what our traditional
This
auditoriums
will
are.
have 1,400.
So we'll end up with 1,400 or 1,500 seats because we don't have lighting controls here and that sort of stuff. All of that needs to be upgraded.
You'll always come out in the long run.
My apologies. There is a handout that each of you got where Joe did a rendering of what this will potentially look like with a lot of purple because it's a school college.
Because
Oh,
you
this
have the
is
structure to start with versus building
gateway.
from
Yes, ma'am.
scratch.
Correct.
We're trying to bring
As long
it.
as the structure is solid, you'll always come out better off economically renovating than tearing it all down and starting.
We're also trying to bring this as close to the district's prototype, so it will look very similar to Gateway, but it would have larger amounts of seating.
Which I don't mind it being premier because it is a school of the arts and that's
That is correct.
the bread and butter.
Yes, sir.
They don't have a football
Oh,
So
field.
what's the reconfiguration?
Reconfiguration.
Yeah, what's the configuration of the seating?
Well, what-
You're gonna raise everything?
But right now, if we had the existing plan, they have all the aisles. They go right up the middle of the auditorium, which is the best seating, right? The second part of it is there isn't a landing anywhere in that auditorium. If you had somebody in a wheelchair at the top, you let them go, they'd go right down and crash right through the exit doors. So as we lifted the auditorium, we've put accessible seating at the top and in the middle and down at the bottom, and we've leveled the aisles so that when you come down a ramp, you can come to a landing and you can stop. And that big center aisle that's through the middle of the auditorium, when you walk, it's like that. It's sloped. Now it'll be flat. You'll be able to get from one exit to another. The other thing I just want to point out real quick is by lifting the auditorium in a sense out of the water table and getting most of the building to 100, we're also now going to be able to take the grade around the building and slope it away from the building. Whereas right now, it's going to the building, especially the service drive that's in the back that goes down like this. That'll be level now, and so that'll help. We're going to waterproof. We're leaving the existing slabs in place, like the orchestra pit and the auditorium house, and we're going to waterproof those. And we're basically going to use those like a mud slab in an elevator. We'll pour on top, but now you have waterproofing underneath to keep that subsurface water from getting into the building.
There is a part of the rendering that shows how where one of those ADM landings are going to end up being in the middle of the facility. So we're working through this, trying to make sure that we balance our budget and make sure that we can accommodate this. Working with Sarah to do it. The Oxa Bus Road. So we were finally able to get something past state government. They approved our easement swap. So we no longer have a wetland easement over this bus road. So we're really picking up our discussions with O'Connor, who owns the property adjoining that we have that agreement with about building the bus road, about making this happen. So at this point, we feel very optimistic that our bus road is going to be done in time for our project to be wrapped up as well. So our bus loop is now going to be off of the back, completely separated from where the cars are going to be. And then video intercom projects as well. One of the things that the states came in when they did their assessment was that they wanted, not because we have our secure lobbies, our interpretation has always been that we would leave our front doors open so you can access and then you will talk to the receptionist. Well, the state has now dictated that the front doors must be closed as well. So in order to make that happen, we have to install a video intercom with the right hardware to make sure that there is a card reader, you can push a button, talk to somebody, and they can unlock the door. It's
Now,
similar
they have the
to,
remote unlocked, so the person doesn't have to get up
That
out
is
of the
correct.
secure to
Yes,
open the door.
it's very similar to what happens here, like if you didn't
Yeah,
scan your ID, you
yeah.
push they would unlock the door for you, you come in, you talk to them. So this was sort of our test case to get this done. We've implemented it at a bunch of schools already, and then there's a second portion where we're gonna go district-wide to get the rest done. The projects we were working on this summer, we were able to fit this in, and then we're going back to the schools that already had a secure lobby to make this happen in order to be compliant. Right now, the doors are locked down and they have a doorbell, and then you and I talked about Neptune Middle operating that way, so that someone would have to come and unlock the door, otherwise Dr. Shanoff would.
But that is, we're expediting this project to be completed by December.
That's our plan.
So come January 1st, all schools will be outfitted with the VIX.
Right, and just for purposes, we had the safety committee, and I thought it was redundant, but they felt comfortable with that. They didn't mind having the outside door, having somebody buzz them in, then they have to sign in again with man trap.
We have to have our front doors locked down.
The state's been clear, there is no, we're not interpreting anymore, they told us when.
Yeah, because I always thought the secure lobby was the front door.
That is our interpretation as well, but that's changed. And so, as part of that same safety requirement, we're putting these numbers on every window on the exterior of the building. What that does is it helps our emergency personnel as they respond if they have to come from the outside. They know exactly what classroom they can go to in order to access it. And then an update on the Roan Bridge project. This is the project over that is the Roan Bridge. This is supposed to be built in the Roan Bridge development. We're wrapped up this design and we're sitting on it. The developer is still not being able to clear their hurdles with the utility companies or the city in order to get their approvals. So they still haven't been able to give us a definitive timeline on when they'll get the project, the site ready for us to start construction. But this essentially will get us to where we can balance the east side of town in terms of student enrollment and get a lot of those portables that we have out in that area, especially over at Harmony done. And then just a quick construction market update on where we are. Construction's booming everywhere. The three little dots that you see in Florida are massive billion-dollar projects that are being done. And pretty much, essentially what we're finding is a supply and demand problem. There is such a demand for construction labor and materials that it's hard for us to get any. We've been more successful than not. I can't remember the last time I really came before you guys to have a discussion about budgets and moving budgets up or down or any of that, because we've been doing a fairly good job of keeping our costs in line. You know, I think that we build some of the most efficient facilities. We build them quick, our contractors get paid on time and they move on, and that translates into lower costs for us. We pay some of the lowest construction manager fees, I think, as school districts district-wide. I've compared, I know definitely some of the larger districts, we pay about 0.25% less than they do. And essentially, we're encouraging people, our small business office is kicking in and really bringing in people, trying to pair them up with these construction managers so that we get the best amount of labor that we can and get the most competitive bids. I hate when we see bids come in for a bid package that's a couple $1 million and then you only have 2 bidders. So a lot of times we tend to kick it back out and say, I need you to go out and do better work with this and get us 5 or 6 bidders so we know that we're getting competitive pricing. But what you're seeing happening is construction labor market. Construction unemployment is significantly below the country's unemployment. And so that just tells you that plumbers are now, plumbers, electricians, the guys that actually pull the wire and install the pipes, those are the guys that really are in control. They're negotiating for whatever salary they want, and whoever pays them a few bucks more, that's where they're going to go work. And so that's going to impact every builder in Florida, and that's essentially what's happening. We have seen some, and I didn't put a lot of the slides here on the construction update in terms of the material pricing, but asphalt's down about 3%, but concrete's up like 6.8%, just the amount of concrete that, whether it's at the airport or one of the army bases that's doing construction. But concrete prices has been going up. Drywall's kind of leveling out, lumber has been down. Metals, kind of hit or miss, because copper is right up, but then you have stuff like nickel that's down, and that translates into our electrical wires and our switchgear. So that's where, and every part of our HVAC equipment. So
How's the supply chain doing? You know, remember post-COVID, things were like slowing down. How's the speed of getting material?
So I'll say it this way, I can with probably a greater degree of reliability tell you when I'm gonna get an piece of HVAC equipment versus when I didn't know anything, but it is not a lot better. So I can still get a chiller in probably 6 months compared to 9 months to a year that we previously did. And with some level of accuracy now, I can say yes, it's gonna come in 6 months.
What was the benchmark prior to COVID?
We could get a chiller probably 3 to 4 months. That would show up. Switchgear.
It's really a lead time of an additional 2 months.
Correct. Well, and that's down from where it was during COVID.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
But it's the weirdest of things that sometimes gets you. You can plan. You know that it was HVAC equipment. It was electrical gear and a couple of items. You know, steel used to be an issue, and then you plan for those, and then everything would show up, and then you're going through it, and then you'll get hit with elevator is not available because everybody ordered an elevator, and so you can't open that building because you're not ADA compliant because you don't have an elevator. And then the code changed so that elevators now require a standalone camera that is independently powered from anything in the building, so that if you lose power to the building, that someone should be able to access it and look into that elevator to tell if someone's still there. Nobody knows how to even make that work, but we're still working through that. But those are the kinds of things that pop up.
Yeah, but the point is we're past the COVID supply chain issues. Now we're just on market conditions.
That is correct.
Of
Yeah.
people ordering too much or too
Essentially,
less.
yep. And I mean, listen, when the federal government passed their infrastructure bill, somebody had to spend that money. So a lot of it in concrete and steel and stuff like that. It wasn't a road construction or whether they're doing back our military bases and stuff like that. It's the same equipment that we buy. The HVAC equipment that we buy is the same one that they buy for data centers that are opening everywhere. Whether it's somebody's building anywhere that Amazon's opening a warehouse, we compete for the same plumbers, the same contractors. They do hotels, and I mean, we drove into Polk County because we had cabinet out in Poinciana on Monday, and blown away by it. I mean, it's just construction everywhere, regardless of what it is, and the home builders are pulling just as much as we are. But that's essentially what it is. So I'll end with this. I know it says Dr. Shanoff's coming, and Dave talks too much. Here I am.
We got 10 minutes left, Dave. This is.
I do it. I
Let's
flew
come back
in
to tell 'em.
last. I flew in Sunday. Whatever it is. I flew over St. Cloud and I looked over Toho. However, somebody complains about it. Those fields look beautiful, man. I tell you what. I know those lights are bright. I'm like up in the plane and I'm almost getting. What wattage are we using on those lights, man? My lord, I'm on a plane. I'm getting blinded from what I see.
The field at Toho High
Looks
School
phenomenal.
is the nicest field I've been on. And I've been at a lot of high school fields.
With
This-
the ugliest and sorriest score.
It's pretty terrible. The scoreboard, yes. But Toho's field is the nicest field we have. Not even.
It looked phenomenal from the plane. Both St. Cloud and.
And
Only took
it's
3 times to get it right.
but
right?
it's going to be our standard. We're using the same process, the same specification, the same kind of grass over the new high school. If we ever have to go replace a field, we'll make sure that this is our new standard. So
Yeah, it is nice.
You have
Phenomenal.
officials who go to different high schools every single week saying that that's the nicest field they've ever been on.
So I know I started this by flipping the presentation, and I wanted to tell you that the people that I talked about and that are on that org chart, the people that do this work, and I'm grateful for it.
Are you? Is this the deductive part?
Still not. This is my
Hey
finish.
Dave, can you do us a favor then real quick? And since this is, I guess, John and I's last one, you've done like a ton of work, and it's never gonna be perfect because you're flying through. What were the key takeaways that you probably learned over the past 4 years? Like, and it's like being honest and saying, hey, these were mistakes just because we understand they happen because you're doing 36 projects at the same time. It's impossible. You're not gonna have anything. What were some of the biggest lessons that you felt you learned?
I was going to go just say that what I was going to end with is that I just told you a really great story about how much work was done this summer, but that doesn't mean that we were perfect or that we got everything right. We hit snags. We made mistakes. We adjusted. We corrected. what I've always said to our team from the first day coming in is that my expectation is not that we're not gonna build a perfect project, but we're gonna build the best project we can with the information we have now. And then if we learn more during that project, and we're not gonna stop the current project to fix it, because that never works well for anyone, we're gonna fix it on the future projects. And that's what we've continually done. So I can tell you a few things that I have learned over time. We had such an energy focus, which I'm all for, 100%. And what we allowed that energy focus to do is dictate the design of our schools. We didn't say that we wanted that our design was going to dictate the energy usage. We allowed the energy usage to dictate the design. And so some of the issues that we've had, I've had several conversations with Board Member Ramsey. I think the chair called me about AC issues over at Point Sienna, at Nice Point K8, and those are the two new K8s that were opened up. We went to a different HVAC system that our maintenance department couldn't support. And we did that in the effort to drive down energy usage. That's just the truth of what it was. It's a great idea, but in order to do that, the systems are so complicated and so fragile compared to what we were accustomed to, which are the big air-cooled chillers with air handlers and VAVs, which is our traditional way. We're working through those issues. We've got them done, but like at the new high school, AAA, we realized very quickly that if we did that, we would end up with so many mechanical rooms in that school and so many pieces of equipment that maintaining it would probably take another maintenance department. So we pivoted. What we did is we realized that our existing air handlers can be more efficient. We can use what's called ECM motors that are not direct driven, but they burn less energy. We focused on getting the envelopes tight, so that's a specific part that we will not waver from. We will build the roofs right, we will build the wall connections right, we will make sure the doors and the windows are done right, because it's tight. One of the biggest energy usage from your home is air leakage. If your doors are not good, the sweeps at the bottom is not good, what you have is heat coming in and the pressure is pushing out the cool air. If we make that tight, essentially what it should translate to as a mechanical engineer is a smaller AC system. And that's where you get the true benefit. And so at AAA, the new high school, we were able to pull 90 tons out of the Toho design HVAC system. Now, just on the tonnage alone, that's a significant amount of savings. It did cost a little bit more for us to do the envelope tight and get the right windows and installation process done. But the payback period is now suddenly 4 or 5 years versus being 30 years. We looked at the option of going net zero at that high school, and the payback period was 32 years. The panels have to be replaced in 20. I could not in good conscience recommend to this board that we go do solar panels when it wouldn't have benefited the district in the long run, to the best of our ability. So, I mean, we're learning to manage the systems that we have, but we're also adjusting. So what you're finding happening, we had a consultant come in today to do a presentation, and he called it finding a delicate balance of energy efficiency, buildings that we can operate, but at the same time, we're not necessarily stuck doing the things we were doing 20 years ago. We're doing newer, more innovative things. As the technology progresses, we're finding a happy medium and building those.
Right.
That would be my big takeaway.
Yeah, and my last thing is, we've already discussed it before, but the rest of the board is, the front entrances, at least having a little bit more space for people to get in there.
And we've absolutely heard you. I had, Joan was working with our new design manager to make sure that the Roan Bridge project, which is a duplicate of the Voyager K8, that we made that we brought the SRO. But that's the continual improvement I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That feedback does not go on deaf ear. We make sure that we go back and we look at it. Listen, I'll take advice from anybody as long as it's good. I constantly go out trying to hear. When you guys speak, I listen, because essentially we're going to come back. There are times when I would come back and tell you, no, this wasn't such a good idea because it's such and such, or we couldn't do it because of such reason. But if it is a good idea, we'll absolutely implement it. And we did make the change at Roan Bridge. So if we ever build that school, ideally when you walk in, it would have a different front entrance.
Construction is never perfect. Just
It
blame
is.
the architect.
Right, Joe? There you go. That's all I had, Dr. Sanders.
All right, thanks, Dave.
This workshop is adjourned. Good job. You got 5 minutes to spare.
I know.
Wow.